Well, hey everybody, and welcome to my outdoor bistro, or at least that's how we refer to it around here. You know that I like to name different areas of my garden in terms of rooms, and we call this space the bistro area. It's a wonderful place for sitting, having coffee, having wine. It probably gets most of its use in the fall because we can light this little fire pit or this little fire grate, and we like to sit outside. Now, it's summertime right now. It's a little bit buggier. It's a little bit warmer. So typically, this area doesn't get quite as much use, but we just happen to have an absolutely beautiful morning. So I wanted to show you what it kind of looks like when it's all tricked out. I've got the pillows out and the candles lit. So first, let me give you a little bit of history of this area. It is right off of the stone steps that lead up to the breakfast room or the fireplace area that's right outside of my kitchen. So when we're sitting inside in our mom and dad chairs, we can open up that door, we get a nice breeze, and it's really wonderful. And when we sit here with the family, we can walk in and out of those French doors. So it's really nice, it's very accessible. When we first moved in, this area was basically, there wasn't anything here. In its first iteration of landscaping, and by the way, when we first moved in, these steps were not here, and this little bump out area was also not here. When we renovated our kitchen, we added this section. But in the first iteration of landscaping, we had nothing here except for a river birch tree, a multi-trunk river birch tree. And it was here for a pretty long time. There was some shrubbery underneath. But then, as so often happens to river birches in Oklahoma, it succumbed to wind damage, to ice damage, and we ultimately took it out. When we took it out, there was then nothing here but this redbud tree, which was a baby of the initial redbud tree that was here when we first moved in. This entire backyard was completely barren when we bought the house, with the exception of one redbud tree. And all of these redbuds that you see here pruned high, these were all babies from that initial mama redbud. So this was here, and then I just had kind of an assortment of messy ground covers and things. Then 2 years ago, we had to have some pretty major plumbing work done here. This entire area had to be excavated down to, 10, 12 feet. We needed to put in a new clean out valve for my kitchen. So it was the perfect opportunity to kind of rethink this area in a way that would be more functional and actually less maintenance. So since it was right off of our kitchen, it proved to be just a perfect area for us to have a very small patio. This area is not large at all. I would say it's no bigger than maybe 12 by 12, 15 by 15. But it is large enough to have 4 chairs here and kind of a conversation pit, if you will. So prior to doing that, we filled this area in with dirt, and then I wanted to add some flagstone and some brick that mimics existing features I already have on my house and in the landscape. So I did not do this myself. I had somebody help me with it, but I could have. It was very, very easy to do. So we just graded the area to make sure that it was very, very flat. And then we came in and we put a little bit of crushed gravel as a surface. We made sure it was level with the existing parts of the gravel deck that were already in place. And then we laid in a herringbone pattern, we laid some brick. I got the brick just at my local hardware store. I think I got it at Lowe's. It was very inexpensive. If you go back on my Instagram feed, you can see, I think, a video of Francisco laying it. And I wanted a herringbone pattern. It didn't have to be perfect. And then we put in some other flagstone that matched exactly the flagstone that was already existing in the rest of the dining deck area. So it was really very, very easy. Around the perimeter, I just kept a planting area because I wanted to feel like we were kind of enclosed in greenery. So there was just a planting strip, and actually these nandinas were already in place, and I just left them. So there's tall Nandina domestica, just a very common form of Nandina. You can see that they're flowering now, and later in the season they put on berries. So from this window outside the French doors, you can see these really cherry red berries. Over here is what I call a florist's viburnum. It is also called a snowball viburnum, but it's different than the massive snowball viburnum that I have in the back. This one has smaller flowers like the ones that you sometimes get in floral arrangements, which is why I think of it as a floral viburnum. There's a bird bath here that is in desperate need of a clean out, and we're getting ready to do that, but it's rather heavy. I'm gonna need some help with that. We need to put some fresh water in there, and again, we can kind of see the birds from our window, which is just delightful, or while we're sitting out here in these chairs. So then for, I guess, how we have chosen to furnish it. So these are just old metal chairs. I got these umpteen years ago. You guys will probably ask me where I got them. It was from a store called Jan's Patio Furniture over probably 15, 20 years ago. I don't even think they're still in business. They are rather heavy and difficult to move around, but the advantage of that is that they don't blow in the wind. But they're very comfortable. They rock and they have cushions on them, but they're not prohibitively heavy that we can't kind of move them around a bit as we need to, or particularly now as we're trying to social distance. Sometimes my team and I have meetings out here when it's a pretty morning like it is right now, and it's really, really pleasant. In the fall and in the winter, we very often light this fire grate. Now, it's really too warm. The temperatures have been in the 90s at night, and it's way too warm to have a fire in the evenings. But nevertheless, I can give the illusion of a fire by having some fun firewood in there, and then I've just added some fairy lights that kind of give the illusion of a fire and makes it look festive and fun and kind of magical at night. Now, unbelievably today, this morning, it is relatively cool, and the wind, unlike the past 2 days, which has just been atrocious, I'm able to light these candles. And I like, as you'll notice, we've got candles lit at varying levels. So when we can light them, they're kind of staged. There's some on the table, there's one in a lantern back there. And by the way, lanterns that are encaged, where the flame is surrounded by glass or something, are much better in windy places like Oklahoma because the flame won't blow out. Unlike these, of course. Now, if I wanted to have these out on a semi-windy day or in the evening, I could get some glass hurricanes or something, but for right now they're fine. Now let me tell you a little bit about the history of these candlesticks. I got these years ago from an antique store, and I gave them to my friends Jenny and Steve, who built an outdoor fireplace, and they had them for probably 10 or 12 years. She was cleaning out some stuff, so then she re-gifted them back to me. So now I have them, and I think of them whenever I light them, and it's just fun that something continues to be reused and repurposed. Then, of course, every area, every room in my garden has to have some topiaries. So I have some of my myrtle topiaries here. I have some lemon cypress in kind of the classic standard form. I've got one in a cone shape over here. And by the way, you guys, here's a little tip. You know, we always hear that every time you have a potted plant, it always has to have drainage. Well, I have found one exception. I can put lemon cypress in pots that don't have drainage, and they seem to do just fine, which is testifies to the fact that they just love lots and lots of moisture and lots of water, and they don't dry out. Now, am I still careful not to overwater them? Yes, but this one here is thriving actually in a way that the others aren't, because it retains constant moisture at all times. And then I just have a little assortment of other kinds of plants and things around here. These are actually indoor pillows that I got years ago from Pier 1, but when we sit outside, they are perfect for this spot. I love this mossy green color. I think they really match the vibe of my garden. And yes, we do take them in to protect them from the squirrels overnight or when we're not using this area. Some other things to kind of keep in mind. I don't have one out right now because I'm charging it, but I typically like to have some kind of mosquito control hanging out here so that mosquitoes don't bother us. I also have out of sight where you can't see it, a bag that kind of attracts flies and contains them so that we're not too bothered by insect pests or by flying annoyances while we sit out here. Another thing that is kind of nice to have readily at hand is if you have like an Echo Dot or you have some kind of source of music that doesn't need to be hardwired in, you can bring it with you. You can put on some soothing music. When I work outside, I sometimes like to listen to opera or a football game or something like that. But quite frequently in the fall and in the winter, we'll put on kind of soothing piano music that I love while we're sitting out here. I've got going up and down the stairs, the right side of this French door is not operational, so I can have plants that are staggered up and down these steps, which kind of serves as a plant stand. These are kind of a resin, an outdoor resin, so they stay out year round. This Eugenia topiary took a huge beating in the wind the other day. It blew over, it's kind of scraggly and it needs some attention, which it will get. This is just a common gold Vortuni euonymus that I made into a topiary, and this stays out year round. This is a baby gem boxwood. It's a Southern Living plant, and I love, if you want to trim anything in a square form, you guys, I recommend baby gem. I think it lends itself to a square form more than any other varieties of boxwood, and I wanted to repeat the square of the planter in a square plant. So I kind of like how that matches. Back in here, I've got some lemon lime nandina, and then in that area in the back, it just kind of goes away. You can't see it. I can store things back there if I need to, however. This tree right here is a Japanese maple that, like practically every other thing in Oklahoma, has been wind, hail, and ice battered, but it's hanging in there, and I can prune it up really, really high to give a nice high canopy. And I think that is probably one of the key features of this area, is that it feels as if there is a ceiling of green because all of these trees are very carefully pruned and the canopy is kept high. That also keeps lots of foliage down low that would attract bugs and things like that. So it makes it airier, it gives it nice air circulation. I've got high dappled light, and it's really a beautiful environment, I think, for this space, which is just off of the dining deck. So when we entertain and we're eating outside or whatever, then I can have lap trays for people to eat over here. This is typically where the younger people like to hang out. My sons and their girlfriends like to sit out here and really enjoy the evening with a bottle of wine or something. So it's really a very, very inviting space. And over here, it's kind of partitioned off with some other, what I think of as plant furnishings, large evergreens and things that stay in the ground year round, and I don't bring them in and out. I don't have to put any of these in the greenhouse. So this is just a little tour of the bistro area. A couple of other things I want to let you know about. I'm having a rendition of my garden made, an artistic rendition of it from overhead, so you guys can see how all of the pieces of my small garden fit together. I think sometimes it's hard to envision what is where and how each space relates to every other space. So I'm about to have that completed. I'm really excited. I'll probably make it available in prints if you guys want to order one. I love having images and layouts of different gardens that I visit as part of my collection, a garden map, if you will. One other idea, if you have any kind of tree stumps from damage to your trees and you've had to have it cut down, chainsaw down into different sections, try to do it very evenly. That way you can use them as side tables in different areas when you're kind of just wanting furniture that's a little bit mobile and organic looking. And I like the way it kind of speaks to some of my different faux bois planters and things that I've got over here. So I hope you enjoyed this little tour of our bistro. I wish I could invite each of you over here to enjoy a cup of coffee, a cup of tea in the afternoon, or a glass of wine in the evening. But I hope you've enjoyed this little tour.